morning. It is very early on. Thank you for taking the time, Jürgen Blume. And it seems like we are both in blue today. I don't know if that is a good sign. I think so. I'm very happy that you said yes. I asked you a few weeks ago. I saw a very interesting post that you put out on LinkedIn, and then I said if you would be interested and willing to be a guest on my podcast, and you said give me a second to think about it. You took a second, but you came back to me, so I'm very happy that you're here today. What brought you here? I ask you because you are in robotics. You're working at KUKA, and but yeah, maybe you introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about what is your background and how you came into contact with robotics, and yeah, maybe in the very end we're able to talk a little bit about what you're doing at KUKA.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure. Thanks a lot for reaching out to me. It was an honor for me as well. You have lots of interesting and inspiring posts on LinkedIn, and I appreciate that you invited me to talk about that. Yeah, maybe short to myself. I'm coming out of a non-academic background family. So, and the interest for robotics wasn't there right from the start. So I was always interested in, let's say, somehow disassembling radios and so on and putting them more or less back together, which didn't always work. And because of the financial situation, actually we were even homeless and camping in a van before school. So that was quite a interesting journey I had there. And then more and more, of course, let's say somehow financial safety was a topic in the family, and they wanted me to become something with banks or money, and but that was not really, let's say, an interest of my perspective. And then I decided to study computer science. I got my first PC from my brothers, luckily, and were able to check that, and then started with computer science in university. I also worked in parallel at different, like delivering packages and so on with German Post to finance that. And it showed me, on the one hand, how hard work can be, and how lucky you are to study in a country like us and develop yourself with learning skills. And then robotics came quite late. It was in a PhD I did in TU München, together in a cluster of cognitive technical systems. And there I really appreciated the exchange with different disciplines like psychologists, informatics, electrical engineering, and so on. And there basically the spark of robotics began. And especially I like the interaction with robots. So how can you make the interaction with robots maybe more natural? That's actually how I came to robotics, and then had the luck also to start at KUKA.
I mean, the topic of having options, having opportunities is a big topic of mine. So I'm always interested in how you came in contact with these, and because having role models, and we spoke a little bit about this recording here, that having someone who is giving you the strength and giving you the support that is necessary to develop yourself and to go through hard times is very much necessary. And having a role models, if you have a brother, for example, if you have the father, if you have a sibling, for example, that does a PhD, and you look at him and you know what he does outside of school, at home, and you think, okay, if my brother can do it, I can do it, right? This is what role model means, and what they do for us. So, and the numbers are very clearly here, and we spoke about this too, that if you don't have an academic parent, then it's still the situation, even in a country like Germany, to go to university to study. And you said that you were working in parallel. And when I was studying, I was much older. I was already 30, and the people around me were 20. And so in the group I was together in the university, none of them was working. So they had like 10 people, and none of them was working. Everyone was supported by the parents, which shows that even in the very lucky situation that university is still very, very cheap compared to other countries, you still need a living. You still need to make a living. Still need to rent. You still need food. You still need to have some money to do something. You were talking about the computer, right? So there's another investment you need to take. But let's go back a little bit. It seems like a very connecting how do you say this? A very connecting topic that people who are interested in these kind of things or who work in robotics are somehow have the tendency to take their radios and put them disassemble, deassembly, and then assembly them again together. So when you said maybe your family had different ideas for you, how did you manage to overcome their expectations and following the things that you wanted to do? Because I think there's a lot of young people out there that feel the stress and they feel the pressure, maybe helping their family to get out of the situation and doing things that are very, I mean, nowadays it's very well known that tech roles can be paid very good. But back then, there might be, as you said, going into finance could have been a much secure way. So I'm interested in how did you have the guts? What inspired you to actually take the effort and going into a different direction?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, like when I say this, like you say, it seems like it was very easy for me. But to be very honest, I'm now approaching mid-40, and somehow you still struggle, because you want to be this maybe still a role model of what your parents want you to be. So, like you said,
Mm,
it's actually not really easy to break with something your parents maybe see in you or you should follow on. But there it was, I think, like yeah, they had the first PC with the monochrome monitor and some calculations tools, and then my older brother, introduced me to programming. Then I did a very basic game, like some ASCII characters bouncing at the top and then moving up again in some kind of labyrinth, very basic. But this was somehow fun, and I felt okay, there's maybe more behind it, and that basically just interested me. So I followed more or less just my curiosity or my interest, if that makes
mm.
sense.
Yeah, it makes.
And, uh, and
Yeah.
I think that brought me on this path. And I think that's always a good sign if you have an interest or feel curiosity somewhere, similar to you inviting me to this podcast. So I was quite hesitant because I haven't done that. But also through my experience, I learned when you are hesitant or you maybe have even fear, then it's probably a good sign to reach out and check if it's only fear or if there's maybe even more to learn.
I think this curiosity you were just trying to describe, I think this is what brought you to where you are, right? And because your curiosity, I think, is or was higher than the fear of not doing it. And if we're putting ourselves in situations where, because if you're staying in the comfort zone, right, this is well known, then there's not too much space of development.
Yeah.
And you said there's the curiosity, and the curiosity brought you here, and my curiosity brought me here as well. So I'm still very nervous. This is the 12th episode we're recording here now, and just the other day I was talking with a friend. How much is it worth, and what I'm getting out of it? I mean, firstly, I like it. It's fun. I like talking to people and getting to know people. And but yeah, in the very end, it takes some time to have a success with anything, right? So you do need to stay. You do need to stay curious. You do need to walk further. When you said that you got this computer, I think a lot of people can relate that are in tech. So what was the next step? Because when you are finishing school and then you go to university, there is a step where you do need to make a decision what I'm doing, right? And even though computer science, now that you're programming robots, seems a very obvious choice, a lot of people on, I see, on LinkedIn, where I'm very active, are reaching out to me. How can I choose, right? Robotics is so, you can go into so many different sub niches within robotics. So how did you manage to stay or go into computer science?
I think it was just really the interest and the experience so far, because you can, although it's not like handcraft where you create something physically, which is also quite impressive, but maybe not my best skill, to be honest. You
Same.
can also create digital, let's say, digital work or things, and it's somehow like turning dreams into reality. You have maybe an idea of some program or some feature you want to have, and it's amazing that you can have the capabilities, or you can teach yourself nowadays way better than before, how to reach these goals or ideas. I think that is what I really liked, and to understand better how it actually works in studies. That was also interesting. Still, if you imagine, I don't know, like even for my dad, he really loved this internet, and he was also into getting knowledge and acquiring that. And he had the encyclopedia, the big books, and he said, "Wow, it's amazing! You just go to the web and search for this." And I had to browse and look up, and then it maybe wasn't defined there, and you need to figure out how to get there. And that was maybe also some inspiration, because the web just came up there, and I also was into developing websites and so on, where the hype still was high. Yeah.
So we're speaking about mid and 90s?
Yeah. So I was born in the good old 80s, and then, like you said, so in the mid 90s, catched up there.
So you said that you were doing a PhD. Just the other day, I was speaking with someone else about PhD roles nowadays. So you did a PhD when it was still, because I think, I mean, this is my impression here, I could be wrong, that PhD roles are much more common than they used to be. And companies are using them. So you're putting, instead of giving someone a real job, you're giving a PhD role. So now you have them for 5 years on a salary that is significantly lower than the normal salary. But I can imagine that back then weren't too many PhD roles, I guess. And how did you came into how do you came into the opportunity to get one of them?
I was at the Institute for Human Machine Communication in Munich, where I did my diploma thesis. And then later I went to other companies, and then a colleague of mine reached out and said, "Hey, we do have this open PhD position." And then I was willing to do something again after the diploma thesis in research and so on. And then we just talked, and that caught my interest. And then that's basically how I came there. It was not like a company PhD, so it was really a PhD at the university, so with teaching and so on. But also that maybe is a great experience, because I really appreciate this, the teachers and the learnings you can get out of many things, and therefore I also like to share the little knowledge I have also with others, because that helped me a lot in my life, and I like giving something back in this direction, because I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, everyone who taught a little bit knows that teaching actually helps you to learn as well.
Yeah,
Because if you want to make it good, if you want to be a good teacher, because if there's questions coming from the student you haven't thought about yourself, or you're unsure, you do need to go back to the books, right? And so,
truth.
okay, I might not know this now. I come back to you, and we can talk about this. So teaching helps us to learn. And as you said, giving back is always a feeling that is good, right? So I can understand that you said, okay, this role for me was something that you enjoyed. So after the PhD, if we're going further your career path, there's the opportunity to stay in research, and then there's the opportunity to say, okay, I'm using this knowledge now for commercial reasons, let's so speak. And did you make the decision to go into what brought you to where you are today?
A good point. Um, I also could have imagined maybe, or maybe dreamed of becoming a professor, maybe.
Hmm.
Um,
It's still there.
It's still there, you're right. But I was maybe also because of my non-academic background, and I still struggle, like I don't have the self-confidence and said, yeah, okay, I have the best or whatever. I have a very good PhD. I thought, yeah, well, I still don't know how I managed, but somehow I did. And then I said, okay, maybe I go to a company. And it was also because I wanted to take after this, let's say, also theoretical parts again a bit the practical parts. I always like this balance between doing some practical things and applying or testing also the learnings or ideas you had. That's I think why I went for the company decision then.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean the decision because this is a recurring topic when we're talking about when we're talking with people who are into research, that how far are you just going, not just, but how far are you going into research versus things that can be applied, right? So there's, as you said, there's a need of a good balance between things that don't have any commercial value, so to speak. So there's no use case that you can solve. There's no problem that you can solve on the customer side, but there is a need for it because the topic in general needs it. And how the transition and I was speaking about just I think it was last or the episode before that with someone who was deep into research as well. And so this closing that bridge between research and commercial side, is there something that surprised you? So this is a question I'm asking very often because for me it was many questions that I wasn't thinking about when I didn't have that close contact with customers.
Yeah, I think when you are, let's say, in the research bubble or more in the research area, then at least you try to be at the forefront of the knowledge. And when you come then to the industrial applications, you are maybe somehow surprised what the current state of the art in industry is compared to what you are doing in research. That maybe struck me a bit how big the gap is.
Mm,
For different reasons, of course. I mean, it needs to run robust, and you have maybe like KUKA as well. You have a lot of legacy and history in your products and services and so on. And that maybe was a surprise, but on the other side, as you mentioned, also a chance. I think it's great because you can bring in your new ideas. Some fail, some might be better. You also learn a lot where what counts in like real environments in production and so on. That's also where I learned again very much. Um, that was maybe yeah a big surprise.
Last week I was on the European Robotics Forum in Rimini. They invited Micropsy us together with the Fraunhofer to have a workshop there, and I had the luck to talk with very interesting people. And then I met someone I was just recording. I just had an episode a few weeks earlier that was so this is Jens from Robotic,
Mhm.
and we were talking about how startups really pushed the, let's say, all the traditional or more traditional robot companies into a position where they do need to do innovation. So you are with KUKA, so you're, as you said, there's a lot of history and legacy here, but and we are working with KUKA as well. So from Micropsy's side, so we do know the advantages and struggles that you have when you're working with such big companies, because for a startup you can do you're starting greenfield basically, right? So if you're coming out of research, you can do more or less whatever you want. Versus, yeah, we do have customers and we do need to serve them, and they do have contracts with us. So I cannot do anything I want. I still need to find a way to maintain and serve them well and find new ways. But our perspective, I mean, he obviously is a founder. He has a different perspective than I do, but that startups really pushed the traditional robot companies into position where they need to accelerate. And here in the background, I can see Business Innovation Lab. So for Siemens, I was working in an innovation lab as well. So you're trying to find new ways. You're trying to, as you said, there's always a gap between what is in research and what is in reality, and closing that gap or making it a little bit more narrow. What is your, from speaking not from a startup point of view, speaking from KUKA point of view? So what do you think is that I mean, how do you feel the situation from within? So there's a lot of attackers, the startups that are trying to, for example, Voraus trying to be a middle layer. How do you perceive that? Yeah, maybe you can elaborate on that.
Yeah, I can at least try to.
Mm.
Yeah, well, I would say, like you mentioned to start with, that we have a big customer basis that we still need to satisfy, provide new features, bug fixes, whatever, which obviously consumes some resources. And then, of course, we are looking into new ideas. And there, of course, I would say competition is always good. And like you said, startups bring up new ideas, which definitely motivate you to look, hey, can that be something for us as well? I mean, there are many ways you can deal with it. You know that we can partner with people like you who have a great approach maybe towards the vision and operating, teaching new objects, and also our other vision partners or system integrators. So I think the complexity, you know, that in robotics is quite high still, and the challenge is always, do you partner with someone? How do you get the feedback as a big company? Maybe not to bet on the wrong horse to develop
Mm.
something then in the end nobody needs, because also a startup can change quite quickly. You don't have the legacy. And but for us, we also have quite, let's say, huge development processes which we need to consider, and a lot of norms we have to follow in development and so on, which can sometimes make this development quite expensive. And then you want to make sure you have something where you believe that that's worth investing the resources and the money.
Mm.
And I think a great approach we are trying to take here is from our Chief Innovation Officer, Ulrike Tagscherer. She created this business innovation lab. And we have these, let's say, 3 phases where a lot of people can submit and create ideas, and then some are being selected as candidates, and then they go into a so-called discovery phase, and then you really work with paper prototypes, which are really cheap, and discuss this in interviews with customers who might need that. And that's one way of, maybe for a big company, to start rather cheap, fail in the best case early if the idea is crap, and get feedback. I think that's quite a good way how we are trying to approach that.
I mean, having these closed circles or fast circles,
Yeah.
as you said, failing fast, to or make this iteration together with the customer, I think this is an approach that is always valuable, right?
Yeah.
Sitting in a lab, sitting in an office, and talking and creating ideas until the very last point, until it's perfect, only to find out there's actually no market for it. I think as you said, they're having a different approach where you're getting contact and feedback much earlier on. I think this is something valuable for big companies, but especially also for startups. Technical founders tend to develop, and this is a recurring topic as well, tend to develop and develop features and this and that, versus actually there needs to be marketing, there needs to be a sales part in that startup vehicle, right? So if you're not listening to them, then you are most likely developing something that are interesting for you, or versus something that you actually need. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing at KUKA? So what is your role? You were talking about you do like programming as well, but maybe you can tell us a little bit what you do, and giving us some insights without going too deep. Whatever you can tell.
Yeah, sure. Well, I actually started, I think back in 2014 as application engineer. So for the
Mm.
cobots, the LBI EVA was one of the first cobots on the market. And yeah, we did a lot of feasibility, lab tests, and field tests. So together with customers to learn what these new cobots could automate, was what maybe wasn't possible before. And then it was also into mobile robots, a similar topic. And then I really also programmed like applications in Java that time. And we did a lot of these tests. I think over 300 feasibility studies in total until now, with customers together. And one thing, for example, is this clean room mobile robot. So that he's handling basically the FUBs in this clean room at some big wafer manufacturers. And that was also quite a learning there when you go there in these clean rooms, and it's really a very dry environment, not very human friendly. The lighting is not ideal, and it's something I think where you are glad, and also the workers are, that the robot can take over these tasks in this environment. And I really liked the contact to the customers. So like you said, also in a big company, it's not easy, like you say, because you have, let's say, multiple instances until the customer feedback arrives at the people writing the code, which can mean, of course, that, let's say, some information is maybe just lost, understand wrongly, or whatever. And we were lucky, let's say, that we were in direct contact with the customers, and you were able to get direct feedback, and that I really appreciated. And then back in 2018, I had the luck to be a part of the mixed reality team. So the Business Innovation Lab started there, and one colleague handed in the idea of mixed reality for robotics. And there were several more approaches at KUKA with this idea already. And funnily, because I started with the LBI EVA, I also felt the safety for cobots is sometimes quite complex. And that brought me to the idea to develop a mobile app, because that was also something I always wanted to do. And then I started with iOS and tried to do this AR-Kit visualization of these safety rooms and areas. And that's basically how I got the pleasure to join this team dealing with the topic. And that was another big growth and learning for me personally as well. You learn so many new topics. You just mentioned that you're with that you think as a technician also about the business model, and is there really a customer need behind that, and so on. And that's something you maybe somehow have in your mind, but you really deal not explicitly with that. And I really like that as well.
Yeah, especially for bigger companies, I can imagine it's much harder because I'm working for Microps Industries, and we are still a startup, right? And so we're about 50, 60 people, and just recently we pushed the idea of that product people and machine learning engineers are going on site at the customer, right? So they had regular interactions with customer, like the product team, but really enforcing the idea that the people that are writing the code, the people that are in the labs, going on the customer side. We have a few customers that we have a very good relationship with, and they invited us. And there had been a few times at our place because we give training on site as well. So we teach customers on our side in our office how to use our system. And so there was a good exchange, and we managed, I think, with 20 people. 15, 20 people that went to the customer side. And so for a startup that has 50, 60 people, right? So there's it's quite a big thing, and everyone was really excited. And some people have never been to a plant. Some people have never been into a factory, and really seeing, so this is where people actually apply. Because we do have customers in labs, right? We do have customers in academia, and but we do have the majority of our customers in manufacturing. And as you said, having this very close contact and not hearing through two or three different departments what the actually feedback is through a salesperson, through a business developer. So, but really hearing from the customer what is the need.
Yeah,
It is
I
quite
think
interesting.
that's awesome that you do that, because like you said, I think you can learn so much, and there's such a huge difference between just the requirement description and the many ways you can implement that. And just like you said, it's sometimes it's just minor issues how you can really improve the same application with much more value to the customer when you are on site and listening to them. That's great that you do that.
I remember that the reason why I reached out to you was I saw a post. So saw a post, you were talking about the Apple Pro. So it has been released now for a few weeks, and people are very eager to do something with it. And yeah, some people are using it for robotics as well. So I saw a comment of you, and you just said that developing an app was something that you really enjoyed and that you were very keen to do. So tell me about this Apple Pro thing. What was your comment, if you can remember, and
Yeah,
what is interesting? Maybe yeah, what ideas do you have when you see this kind of technology?
yeah. So maybe just going back to the business innovation lab phase we had with the mixed reality. So we actually started for the customers with the Microsoft HoloLens 2 back then,
Mm-hmm.
so which was
Mm-hmm.
also this head-worn device. And let's say the degree of immersion with such a glass is of course way higher than, let's say, looking at a mobile screen, having AR app. But we got the feedback from like the robot commissioners that they already carry a lot of equipment, and they maybe don't want to carry in addition these glasses, for example, or then the colleague has it and you don't have it. And that's why we there with the current solution went for, let's say, just mobile devices and tablets, because everyone nowadays have that in the pocket. However, the the degree of immersion also with the Apple Vision Pro was really impressive, because I wasn't able to tell apart the pixels. So it was really amazing how good the displays are and the display quality is, and the stability of these holograms. So I mean, we just tested some apps with the dinosaurs or whatever, and it really was like you would be standing in front of a real dinosaur. It was hard to
Mm.
tell. It's not a real one, of course, but that was quite impressive. And what I really liked as well, um, as I mentioned earlier, I come from the Institute for Human Machine Interaction. So we're dealing with multimodality and interaction, like gaze, gestures, speech recognition, and so on. And that was also impressive how good the eye tracking was, because you basically select with your gaze the buttons or whatever you want to select. And then you
Mm.
do the small finger gestures to
Mm-hmm.
confirm, okay, that's what I'm looking at is now that what I want to select, to confirm that. And that's just so intuitive.
Mm.
And you are so fast. And let's say this combination of this high degree of immersion and the, let's say, quite natural interaction with your gaze, that was something that I found quite impressive. I mean, that was also, let's say, the case with the HoloLens, but maybe in a lesser quality. I mean, there was also gaze tracking and so on, but the quality just had improved. And I think there, like you said, in robotics, there's so many spatial data, like the coordinate systems, areas where you want to be, the path the robot takes. And I think that this technology can really help. Like they call it spatial computing, but maybe for robotics, it could be spatial debugging. You know, when you are the programmer, you get all this information placed where it is, and you can easier understand what is happening. Also for your
Mm.
vision processes, you create the frames and so on, and you can check directly in real environment, okay, is that really where I want to be? Is the frame correct? And so on. I think that could be a big potential for the future.
So using simulations that are so good, they doesn't seem like simulation anymore, because simulation
Yeah,
is a big topic in robotics. And
yeah,
having now the opportunity to, as you said, there had been other devices and we have been seeing other devices, but yeah, Apple is also known as bringing things onto another level. And what I really liked about your comment was the intuitivity, because this is what a lot of companies are lacking with, right? So let's say because you're coming from a technical background, the main goal is solving the technical problem
true.
versus there is a UI, there is a UX. And I really like that you, because you're coming from such please let me call it an elephant, because when I was at Siemens with this innovation units and innovation labs, there was the approach of making the elephant dance, right? So you have a very big company. There's a lot of, as you said, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of laws, there's a lot of standards that need to be taken care of. And so you in a startup, you in the very end, you do need to serve them as well. You do need to have them, right? But somehow you were able to test a little bit more without applying all those requirements. Yeah, we are in microPC in that phase that we are, yeah, one after another, picking off those requirements. But yeah, coming from KUKA and saying this intuitivity is something that really not surprised you, but how far Apple was able to bring it to another level was something that was impressing you. You weren't obviously the only one or to test it, to have a look at it. So I'm curious to hear your words about if you think this will accelerate the internal development towards a system that is more intuitive.
Yes. So I think the elephant is maybe not already dancing, but we are he's already moving very good and doing its work, to be honest. And I think they try to do their best. But of course, that's something we need to do to make. I mean, we have this vision of making robotics more accessible to people also not too much into robotics. And the only way you can reach that, I think, is by making it more intuitive to deal with robotics. Um, I think one approach that currently is already out there is this, let's say, low code variant where you have graphical elements to structure that. That's an approach in this direction. But like you said, I think there can be more to it, like even no code, like you do it with microPC, right? You wanna maybe show this to the robot sometimes, or then it trains on its own and later on can do the task, right? I mean, there always needs to be code for the robot to operate, but the less the user is confronted with this, the better it is for the user. Because at the end, I don't care how he really achieves it. I just want to have that the robot achieves this, what I want to do. And yes, so I think also UI UX is becoming a bigger topic at KUKA. I still admire, let's say, to some point, how good Google and Apple are with their approaches towards these problems. But I think it's in the end, it's always like we already mentioned about the customer perspective. So as a technician, it's hard to leave the technical aspects aside, but you really need to step into the customer shoes and don't throw just all parameters he needs to fill because, yeah, that's what I need, and try to make it more elegant. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's if we have more people that are aware of the situation, and not only aware, because I don't think that people are not aware, but I think the importance of it, and especially people in IT. So this is my very limited view on that. Tend to so these are the regulations. Or not maybe not IT, but maybe engineers or technicians, as you said, in general. So they're starting from the position. So this is the situation in front of me, right? This is the architecture I'm dealing with. These are uh, the resources I'm dealing with, right? So this is the only thing I can offer you as a customer versus me coming from the customer side, right? Say this is not what I need. This is not what I want, right? So, and now the question comes, what is more important? And in the reality, we do need to realize, and I think this part in the mindset is not very often very clear. The money gets paid by your employer, but he can only pay you if he earns enough money coming from the customer, right? So, and understanding that not customer is always king, right? But because it needs to be reasonable, it needs to make sense, and it needs to be affordable. There's no, yeah, I have a wish list, and please just give me all the things I need. In the very end, it needs to work out on both sides. But yeah, very interested in see where not only KUKA but all robot companies come. And you were talking about no code, right? Or low code.
Yeah.
Because me as a customer, I'm definitely not interested what's behind that. I'm interested in what's coming out of it and how can I use it and how easy is it to use it for me.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's also what we experience. And yeah, like I mentioned, we also go out for a project currently and visit people in handcraft, like in wood manufacturing, in stone and metal, and they we probably underestimated how creative and also technology affine they are already.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you said, when you go there and talk to them, they will tell you what they need and yeah, what they expect like from your project. And it's like I said, they don't, of course they could program, they are really smart people out there, but they have different tasks to fulfill. Their main goal is not to program half a day. They need to produce these special parts for their customers. And that, like you said, the robot or any other machine is just a tool which they can use because it's maybe harder to find people. But in the end, they don't want to spend double the time programming a machine than it would take them to do it on their own, right? So that's a big thing to really listen to the customer and make it easier for them. And like I said, the balance is also quite tricky, like I said.
Yeah, I mean the balance because you have different stakeholders, right?
Yeah,
And if you're aware of them, it makes your job even harder because you now have more than one person to serve, more than one person to make happy.
yeah,
And yeah, it's always challenging. And then you have the outer forces, right? So you have the market forces. There's
yeah,
other companies in other countries that are doing it cheaper, maybe
yeah,
some doing it better, some doing it faster. And then this comes on top of it, and so you need to do your work, keeping all those things
yeah.
in your mind. Where are you guys situated, you said?
In Augsburg,
Ah,
close to you.
obviously.
Yeah.
Uh, I I haven't found the time yet or the opportunity to visit Augsburg. There might
More than
be,
welcome. And anytime, just drop me a mail.
yeah, it could be that I'm spending some time there. I'm interested in yeah. I mean, very often if you go on manufacturing side, then there's sometimes the opportunity to walk through, right? When you're in development, you can see offices, right? So for me, I'm always liking going customer side or going into a factory, seeing how they're producing, what is the environment, what are the challenges they're facing. And but I'm definitely interested in seeing how you guys, because I mean necessarily, right? Just out of the offices need to be near labs. So do you guys? I don't know if there's a robot standing right next to your desk at work, but yeah.
We have that actually. So yeah, it's like I said, we when you do the application engineering, you have the robots basically at near your workplace. And but of course, we also have like the R&D development in offices and so on. But they also have test cells and yeah,
We were coming from the very early beginning where you said so you don't have a background or you don't have a family with a background in academia. And some people might find this cliche, but yeah, I'm always asking for. But sometimes it's the same answer, but sometimes not. So there's a reason why I'm asking.
yeah.
If you, I don't know if some people are mentoring because they do know. You said you teach sometimes, or you used to teach. So if you could come back and try, or yeah, what are you trying to, because you said you would like to give back. If you could go back, what is a thing that you would like to tell your younger one, your younger self, approaching that? Because there's hard times, and sometimes you struggle, sometimes you struggle even in our age. Struggle will never end. I can
Yeah.
tell everyone who's younger. Yeah, maybe there is something that you would like to say or you would like to mention.
Yeah, I think it's I mean it's easy to say or easier to say from an older perspective because maybe you need to make all these struggling experience, fear, whatever, to become the person we are now. Yeah. But I think try to be brave is the good thing. If you can do that, I think that's also a personal thing for everyone. And follow your curiosity. And I mean, this is maybe a cliche, but I think really education is the one thing that can empower you to come out of whatever situation you have, because the mindset and the learnings you have can always, I think, give you an advantage in the whole society, and can definitely bring you forward and open maybe more doors. I think that's what I would suggest to my younger one, to really follow the curiosity and be brave.
Yeah, I think this combination that you have been brave enough to follow your curiosity, I think this is what leads you to where you are today. And yeah, maybe one thing can help the other. So I'm trying to be brave, so I'm following my curiosity. And by being more curious, it's easier to be more brave because I'm so curious. And yeah, I don't know. I'm very happy that you took the time, Jürgen, and
My pleasure. Thanks
I'm
a lot.
always inviting people to Berlin, even though the city in the last few weeks and months seems to be struggling as well. So it's still we have a nice office. Feel free to we do have interaction with KUKA obviously because
Yeah, yeah.
KUKA is one of the platforms that we're supporting. I'm not 100% sure how much you are aware of this or involved, because there's always someone who is in charge of this kind of communication. I'm not within our company, so I cannot do some name dropping now, or I could, but
I know the context, but yeah, for sure, I'd love to visit
yeah.
and change in person with you.
Yeah, and thanks for being so brave and curious to be on my podcast, because it gave me the opportunity to get to know you, to get to know your path, and maybe a little bit about knowing about now about KUKA. Uh, and I'm definitely having a look at Augsburg. I mean, if you're in Germany, if you're into robotics, this is one of the places to be, right?
Sure, sure. We have a lot of things to show you and exchange. We also learn a lot from you guys. So really looking forward to it. Thanks a lot, Ilya. It was a big pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah, I think we both overcame our curiosity, and we are rewarded with a good conversation. I hope everyone had fun listening. If there's any question, reach out to me or to Jürgen as well. And yeah, this episode will be published on a Thursday. Today is a very early Tuesday, and thank you for taking the time.
Thanks, Ilya. Bye. Have a good one.
Bye.